Hello. Welcome to Finsweet Live Build Day, Friday, with Alex Iglesias, CTO of Finsweet. Today, we are talking about a very hot topic that a lot of people ask for and a lot of people are curious about, and that's GSAP. This is a JavaScript library effects monster. It can help you do a lot of really cool things that may be better done than in Webflow interactions, or maybe Webflow interactions can't handle that. So we'll be going over GSAP today. Alex will walk us through the basics. And by the end of it, our goal is to get a stagger animation up, which is really a nice effect. You should be staying for this stagger effect because you can't do it in Webflow interactions. And a lot of people, when they get to this point of Webflow, I know so much about this, they need that next step. And for a lot of people, GSAP is that next step. So I'm excited to talk about this. Alex, what's up? How you doing? What are you thinking about GSAP right now?
Hey, I'm great. And so GSAP is cool. I know that there's a lot of interest in that. You already mentioned whenever you try to build something advanced, there's always that moment that you need to step out of the platform and try to use something more advanced or more powerful. And in this case, GSAP, it's a really nice tool for building animations that require some advanced, something that it's more advanced of what you can do with Webflow interactions. There are a lot of things, not only the stagger. I know that the stagger effect is that the effect. There's a lot of people that just wants to do that natively in Webflow and they can't, and that's why they just reach for a library like GZAP. But there are a lot of other things that you can do with GZAP, and hopefully we'll showcase a bunch of them during this stream. So yeah, it's gonna be great.
I agree. The new Finsweet site, which is coming, it's really, really coming. It's going to be out before Webflow Conf. Super excited about this. It doesn't use Webflow interactions. Anytime that we need an interaction that could be done with Webflow interactions, we use GSAP. Now, this is it's not a feature. We don't do it because of the features. We're doing it because of performance. So if you're really serious about performance, you're working on a project that needs just a little bit of a leaner build when it comes to motion and animation, GSAP can help you. It is more performant than Webflow interactions. So we're using it for performance reasons. You could use it for functionality and feature reasons. It's just a good thing to know and to understand. So Alex, let's jump right in here. We are not going to say hello to anybody watching because we need to start animating here. I want to see this happen.
Okay. Okay, I guess I was about to make a quick comparison between what you can do with Webflow and what you can do with GZAP, but perhaps we can just see it right away while building something, right? The only thing is, if anybody wants to jump and code with us today, I will do some stuff in Webflow, but for demoing purposes, I will be doing some stuff in StackBlitz, and that will be very simple for everyone who's right now with us. Just do what I'm doing, and in no time you'll be coding with us, and it will be very simple. But okay, so GSAP it's a package. So whenever you're working with in any project and you're building your own files, that can be included in your project. But not only it's a package, it can be imported as a CDN. I mean, it can be imported from a CDN just as a regular library, so you can slap it on a Webflow site and it will work right away. In our case, we will do the first version. So we'll take the package, we will install it in our own project, and then we'll compile everything and send it over. But perhaps it would be great if we start by, okay, but how do I start? How do I use this GZAP, right? So I think that we have these links in the description, so you can follow along. Just go to greensock.com. This is the main site of GZAP. And the first thing that we want to do is obviously install that. So if we go to the documentation, and there is the installation section in here, which explains different ways that you can be consuming this package. It already mentions this here. You can download the package, which is something that you don't want to do. You can pull it from a CDN. You can pull it from npm, which is what we'll do later, etc. From GitHub or directly in CodePen. That's cool. So in the case of something very simple that you're not even compiling code because you're just writing a bunch of JavaScript lines and that's it, the CDN option is the best one for you, because this one, it's just telling, okay, slap this script on a site and you're good to go. So you would just be picking this script, you would be putting in the project settings, and then right away from the window object, you can already start consuming GZAP. I mean, let's do it. It's gonna be very simple. So we'll just pick this script, we'll just put it here in the home, we'll add it on the head tag. I always like to put stuff on the head with a deferred tag because it slows faster. And then when we save this, that's it. You can already start using GZAP. It's a regular library like any other. And in this case, for example, if we go here and we open the console, let me zoom in a little bit, and whoops, and we just type GZAP is already there for us, which is cool because then the entire library is already exposed here in the window, and we can play around with it in the console. So I could do something like, okay, let's take an element. Let's just take whatever, this class in here, and you could already say GZAP from, and then we'll put this class in here, and then we'll just say, and don't worry, I'll explain everything that I'm doing right now. But look what happened. We're already animating stuff with just one line of code without having to worry about anything like compiling or thinking about, TypeScript and stuff like that, which I'm gonna use in a second. But this is the fastest way that you can already slap it on a project and start building. Now, obviously, this is not the best way, especially for explaining you, because I want to have my own project with TypeScript. I want auto completion. I want stuff. I want it to be then compiled and be very performant from my side. So in that case, obviously, what we could do is just jump into the developer starter template, and instead of using the CDN approach that we took of taking this script, we could change that to be modules npm, which is the case that we are interested in. And we can again just follow what's saying here. It's saying, okay, import GZAP from GZAP, which means that we need to install the GZAP package in our project, right? So as I said, I could just jump in on any developer started project or any node project. It doesn't matter if it's the developer starter or not. And I would just need to, let me go 1 second, because I created this just before the stream, and I could just install the GZAP package like that using pnpm add, and that will be enough. I could right away just import from GZAP, and that's it. And this is already something that, the same as I did here on the project, on the side that I wrote these lines, I could do the same here, and it would be enough still. Okay, but for the sake of, because I would like people to start to do it with me, because I think it's going to be fun. For the sake of doing that, instead of working on my own local environment, I will just pull up a StackBlitz site. Okay, so I'll just go to stackblitz.com. You can follow along with me, and in here I will
Can you
just
zoom in,
create a.
please?
Yes, I know that
Very
that's what's
small.
coming. Okay, so in Cyber, you probably need to create an account, but it's very simple and it's free. And just create a vanilla TS project. And there's a reason for that. The reason is because I have a lot of stuff to show you. There's a lot of things that we can play with. And here in StackBlitz, we will have to work directly with it with an HTML file. So I know it's not as cool as working in Webflow, where you just have everything visual with drag and drop and stuff like that. But at the same time, I can show you the output automatically. So it will be very simple. You'll see. So this is just a very simple bit TypeScript project. And what I want to do is just delete everything here in the main TS because I'm not interested in this. We'll just keep the styles. That's it. So now we have a blank project, right? Okay, so let's do the same that I did for the developer starter project. What I'm gonna do is I'm
And
going to open a new terminal.
Alex,
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, Alex, can you please share that link to stack plates?
Yes.
I can't find it. I don't see it.
Templates here. Let me know if that was
Okay,
enough.
I see.
Yeah.
Yes, adding this in the chat here, so you can use this for free to go and follow along with us if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And
Okay.
can you also zoom?
So yes,
Okay,
I would
nice.
like to
Nope,
not
nope.
zoom that much because
Yeah,
then we
that's okay.
lose the that side.
Yep.
Okay, so let me recap again what I did. I just opened a Vite TS project here with in Stackblades, and I opened the main.ts file and I removed some boilerplate that was already included in there, and I just kept the styles. That's it, because the styles are good to have in there. So well, let's start by just installing the GSAP package as we did before. And in this case, we're not using pnpm, we're using npm. So you'll type in the terminal npm install like that, and we'll install GSAP. Okay. Let's wait a second, and everything is installed. We can just get rid of that terminal. Cool. Okay, so now we have a blank project that it runs using Vite with TypeScript. We don't need to dive into that. That's fine. But we can start already using GZAP as we said. So we can import from GZAP like that, GZAP, and I could just console log GZAP for a second, so we can see that everything is working fine. This is GZAP, so we're good to go. Okay, so what can we do with GZAP that we cannot do in Webflow, right? There are a lot of things, but I think that let's start with the basis of how to use GZAP, because then you'll start seeing different differences between GZAP and Webflow. So I would like to talk about the main three different GZAP 2, GZAP from, GZAP from 2. These are the three base twin functions that we can use with this GZAP that are defining some action that are going to take. So pretty much it's saying the name already. So we have the to, the from, and the from to. And essentially what this is saying is, okay, take an element and any property, any styling, any change that I want to put to implement to that element, just go from a specific, from the current state to a state that I will define in this function. Or we can do the other way around. We can take an element and we can say, okay, from the current state that the element is, for example, the element has opacity 100%, or yeah, so opacity 100%, which is essentially that it's visible. I can say, okay, I want to go from opacity 0 to the opacity that that element has. So from the state that I'm defining to the current state that the element has. And the third one is just a mix of both. So I can take a from a specific step to another state, and that's it. But let's start by just GZAP.2, because this one it's a simple one. So let's, obviously, as I said before, I'm not working on a Webflow project, so we need to add some elements on the page so we can work with that. And the only thing that I will do is I'll just go to the index.html file and we'll write some HTML. It will be very simple, I promise. Just let's take this div, the app div, and inside here, let's say, actually, I think we can get rid of this div all at once for all. Yeah, we'll just say stream wrapper, for example. Okay, so we have a div, and let's put a ball in there. And obviously we need some styles. So I'll just come in the style CSS just for the sake of styling a little bit this. And first, let's just call the ball. And we want a ball. How do we want that ball? We want a ball with some width, with some height, with some background color that this will be red. Okay, kind of we got a ball. Let's put it round corners. So let's say for the radius, let's be 100%. I think 50% is the same, right? Yeah. Okay. So we've got a ball. We have something that we can work with. Again, everything that I'm writing here would be the same if we just came in the Webflow project and we did by just dragging stuff in here. But as you can see, the feedback here is faster, so I have more time to show you stuff. Okay, so we have that ball. And let's say, for example, that I just want to pick that ball and move it from one side to the other. I just say that, right? I could just come here to GSAP and let's say a ball, and we'll move that ball, I don't know, 500 pixels. But that was pretty big. Let's try 100 pixels. Okay, so let's see what's happening here. So we have this function GZAP, and this function is saying, okay, I want to take an element and I want to change the state of that element to something. So in this case, I'm saying, okay, just take the X position and apply a transform and just move it 100 pixels to the right. Okay, so if we inspect this, let's just inspect this ball. We will see that this ball now has a transform of translate 100 pixels. So we're essentially doing that. If we change that to 200, so now this is changing to 200 pixels. Okay, but you know what's cool of GZAP is that you're not only limited to pixels. Obviously, you can add any kind of CSS unit. So I could come here and I could say, okay, I want to animate 8 RAM instead, or I want to animate a 50%, or I want to animate, I don't know, 50 CH units. Anything works. View width, 50 view width, anything works. So that's one benefit that we have of GZAP over Webflow. And it's that we can use any kind of CSS units, and you will see that in a second, that we can use also any kind of CSS properties. Is we compare that to Webflow? Let's just create the same in Webflow. I think that it will be great if we just compare things that can be done with interactions and things that cannot be done with interactions. So let me just remove some boilerplate. And Joe, please stop me if I'm going too fast. I think that if I don't go fast enough, I won't have enough time for this stream. Okay, so we have the ball. Let's just do it again, just for the sake of demoing. So we have 4 RAM, 4 height. We got some background of red like that, and we had some radius up to 50%. That's fine. Okay, but if we wanted to animate, there's first here the first limitation of Webflow, because if I want to create an interaction for this ball, what options do I have, right? How can I trigger this? I only have a bunch of options. I can either click when clicking, I can when hovering, when moving the mouse, when scrolling in a view. I have this bunch of options, but I cannot do other stuff like when I click on that button. Well, clicking on a button would be enough, but for example, when the user inputs a value on the form and that value is higher than 10, I want to trigger a confetti interaction. I don't know. Anything that it's required, it's the origin is from any other action of the user that it's not these ones in here, we cannot do it in Webflow. So usually we have to use some dirty hacks for triggering interactions, right? Not in the case of GZAP. In the case of GZAP, because I'm writing the code myself, I could write some extra code to detect whenever I want to trigger this action. It doesn't matter when that's happening, as long as I put it in the right place. And the second difference between GZAP and Webflow is if I come here, okay, let's say that let's just trigger that interaction by clicking on the ball. So I'll not click on the ball. Let's just put a button just for the sake of, you'll see that in a second. Or, you know what? On page load. That's fine. So we'll start the interaction to say ball interaction. And now I want to animate the ball, right? But in this case, when I want to animate the ball, I can only either affect the element itself, so this specific ball element, or the class. And that's it. This is the only option that I have, either the element or the class. And obviously the interaction trigger, but it's kind of the same as the element. Well, I mean, it's very similar. So that's it. I cannot use attributes for targeting an element. I cannot use any SVG elements. So imagine that inside an SVG, you have a letter or a stroke in an SVG. I cannot interact with that. I cannot use any other selectors that it's not either class or, and that's it, right? In GZAP, you can see here that I used this CSS class for targeting the ball itself, right? But I can do it in other ways. I could just come here and I could say fs element equals the ball. Now I have an attribute on the ball. And instead of using that ball class, I'll replace that for the attribute of fs element equals to ball. And that works completely fine. It would be the same if I also used an ID. It would be the same if I first queried the ball like that. So if I did a document query selector, come on, I always forget how to write in the streams. Query selector, and now I use this. And now that I have the ball, I pass it to GZAP, it's still working. So imagine that I already queried that ball because any other reasons, and I want to trigger that specific ball, not any other one with the same selector. I just want that ball. I can do it here with GZAP. So we have a lot of difference already, right? But let's just go back to the class for demoing purposes. Now let's go to the cool part. Okay, I have more than one ball. Let's just multiply this. Look what happened already. Everything works as expected when there are more than one ball. And let me just wrap this with, oh, I think that's fine. Let's just keep the balls like that. By default, when you pass a selector that more than one element can match that selector, so for example, the CSS class or even the attribute, it would be enough, the same, because all the balls have the same attribute. GZAP out of the box takes that and just animates everything, right? So GZAP already detects all the elements. And this is why we can do stuff like staggering. So I could just come here and I'm saying now, just from all the items, just instead of triggering the animation for all of them at the same time, just stagger them. For in this case, it's 0.5 seconds, but I could say 0.1. I could have it less. That's too fast, perhaps. But yeah, anything works. So okay, this was the goal of the stream, so we're kind of there. But I know that there are many yeah, but there are many other things that we can show. So yeah, it's very simple.
Let me add, the stagger here is so many steps in Webflow interactions, right? To create that kind of stagger effect in Webflow interactions, you have to add extra classes to everything. You have to have each ball in that interactions panel to have a separate item that starts and finishes at different times. And then if you wanted to update that value, If you wanted to say, hey, actually, I want the stagger to go from point 0.5 to point 0.1, you have to update every single one of those to the point
Hmm.
where you just wouldn't create a stagger animation in Webflow because it's just a little too cumbersome to manage. But we can really see how easy it is with this GSAP setup.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, as you said, if I wanted to implement this one line of code here in Webflow, I need to spend like 5 to 10 minutes right now just trying to build that interaction, and then let's never touch it again because I don't want to change anything that I just built. Yeah, it's a pretty pain in the ass. Um, okay, so I think that let's just keep doing stuff unless there's people who have any questions. Do we have any questions for this?
Um, yes, there was somebody asking about easing effects. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe as we
Yeah.
continue, just touch on how do we adjust that easing?
Yep. So, well, just taking the base, because GSAP, when you just use the base, it's pretty simple. We just have the function, and the first argument of the function, the first parameter that we're passing, it's just the selector or the element itself. And then the second parameter are all the options that we want to pass to that animation in particular. And one of the options that we have is easing. So obviously now perhaps people can see why I'm using here TypeScript instead of working directly here in the console. And it's because I can see all the different options that we can use, and it's a lot. So if I start writing is, that will kind of already hint me that the option is. Okay, so in here, we have a bunch of options that we can do when working with easings. And let's just go to the documentation for whoever it's has just joined us right now. If you go to greensat.com/docs/v3, or you just go to greensat.com and then you click on docs in here, um, we can, I think that the ease is here, like that. There's a section that's called eases. Obviously, there are a bunch of eases that are built in. So this is already showing me how easings work here in GSAP. So we have no easing, we have power one, power two, power three, power four, back, elastic, bounce, route. So all of these names that you can see here, you can just write them in here. So I could just say bounce, and that's already using one of these easings, is using the bounce easing. We could change it, for example, to rough, um, like that. We could change it for back. So let's change it to back. It does this kind of animation of going and then going back. Or instead of passing a string, it also accepts an easing function. Um, and this is what it's here. So perhaps it's easier if you just use these. Well, so bad at this. I'll just try. Okay, let's. That's not good at all. But you can see that I messed up, and I think that because I am not following a correct function, that should be it. Yeah. So I could just define this function, and then this is telling me to use this easing. Easing. So I can come here and I could paste this, and oh, right, without the, like that, and I need to import this from GSAP. Give me 1 second. From GSAP all. Okay, now I built my own custom ease. So GSAP exports this custom ease function that allows me to write any kind of easing. Obviously, I don't know how the hell to write this, so it's better if you just use the documentation, the generator here. It's way simpler. But yeah, just use this custom ease function to be able to create any kind of easing. But in our case, I think it's just simpler if we take I just go with power one or bounds. I like bounds. Oh, yeah, let's just use bounds. So bounds, 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 bounds. Let's replace this with bounds. Like that. Cool. A little bit too rough. Anyways, okay, that's fine. So easing, staggering. What else can we do? Things that you cannot do in Webflow that I still have not mentioned. In Webflow, when you're animating something, so let's say that we want to animate this ball, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different properties. That's it. You can just move it, scale it, rotate it, skew it, and that's it, right? But in GSAP, you can animate anything. I want to change, for example, the border radius of the ball. So let's imagine that I want to change border radius. So I could come here and border radius. And the border radius, I want it to be 0%. So now the ball goes from 50% border radius, which is original, to 0% border radius. I could change, I don't know, look at that, all the options that we have here. I can animate the flex properties. I can animate the grip properties. I can animate uh, lines, stalls, borders, overflowings, paddings, margins. Let's imagine that I want to animate the margin bottom. The margin bottom of each one of them, I want to add 1 rem of margin bottom. How cool is this? Now every item, let's put 2 rems. Look at that animation. How cool is that? It's just adding the elements one under the other because I'm animating the margin on every item that it's being triggered. So whenever you need to create an interaction, an animation that it's kind of limited with the options that you have here, that's when GSAP is also a good option to rely on because you can animate anything that you can write with CSS, anything. Okay, I have a couple more things that we can showcase here. The first one is yo-yo. I like this option. The yo-yo option is just saying, okay, whenever the animation finishes, go back. Why is this not working? Yo-yo true. Oh, right. I need to repeat. Let me try something. No. Okay. Yeah. I needed to make the animation repeat. So, okay, let's start without the yo-yo. So repeat is essentially just saying the amount of times that you want to repeat that interaction, right? You can either add a specific number. You can see now that it just did it 2 times and it stopped. Or you can add a -1, and this is just doing it infinitely. That's it. With the yo-yo, it's saying, okay, whenever you reach the bottom of the animation, whenever you reach the end of the animation, just go backwards. So just rewind the animation. So that's another thing that's cool. The yo-yo. And I'm just checking here my cheat sheet. I think that's fine. The last thing that we want to show here is that you can also run functions. So GSAP gives you control about, you have programmatic control of the animations. And one of the key things that you want to do when controlling an animation programmatically, it's knowing exactly when something has happened. So in this case, for example, we can know whenever the animation is completed. We could just say console log completed, and this would run whenever the animation is completed. But I think that it will not run now because it's infinitely on repeat. So let's try it again. Completed. So now we know that we can run functions on a specific on specific places, on specific moments when we're controlling this animation, which is also something very powerful. And I would like to continue with that, but Joe, you had a question on something, right?
No, I don't have a question. Well, somebody has a question asking how to
Yeah.
do this on a Webflow site. So, just at the end of the stream, what I'd like to do is take all the work that we're doing in here, paste it
Mm-hmm.
inside page settings with the CDN, and just watch this same thing work, or
Mm-hmm.
a version of it. So just by the end,
Yep.
we'll remember to get this live in Webflow. But that's it for me.
Cool.
This is
Good
really cool,
idea.
by the way. This is, I mean, you can create cool little UI animations from this. Like those nice little dashboard animations that you can make with Lottie effects and all
Mm.
that. You can do simple
Mm-hmm.
ones with this. It's much more performant, and look how smooth and silky this is. This is great. So,
It is.
yeah, it really is the next step after you've reached your limit with Webflow interactions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you know what? After before we end the stream, I would like to also talk a little bit about um, alternatives to GZAP, because I don't want people to think that GZAP is the only ultimate tool. There are other tools that perhaps we can discuss, and if there's interest, we could do other streams around them. But yeah, GZAP it's one of the best tools that you can use out there. Um, okay.
There is one good question, and we definitely should cover this from Magica Nexus. So to trigger a GSAP animation on click or hover or etc., do you still need to implement the add event listener? So I think we should show some triggers. How does this
Mm-hmm.
start, right? If we're playing on loop, this is
Yeah.
perfect. But a lot of times we want to
Mm-hmm.
scroll into view, we want
Yeah.
hover, whatever it is.
That's the next step that I wanted to jump in. So obviously, right now we're just running this animation on page load, and that's it, right? But GZAP gives you control of when to run this animation, and not only that, but you can play it at any time, pause it at any time, reverse it at any time. You can destroy the animation. You can do all of these actions, and the way that you do it is you store the return value of the function in a variable. So let's just call it not animation like that. And this animation, it contains right now the controls for this specific animation that we defined here. So if we just inspect the animation, the variable, we will see now that there are a lot of controls here. We can change the delay, we can change the duration, we can pause it, we can play it, we can repeat it. So we have many controls that we can now use. So imagine that, for example, we want this animation to start paused, and this is another property that you can add to a GZAP animation. So this starts paused, right? And in here, let's just add two buttons. Let's say button in here, and this will be play me. Okay. And this, let's call it pause me. And I'll put that up in here. Like that. Okay. So we have these two buttons, right? Obviously nothing is happening right now in here, but we can add the actions to the button. So first let's define an attribute. Let's call this fs element equals to one will be play and the other will be pause. And that we know that this button should play when we click it and this button should pause when we click it. So the last thing that we need is just add an event listener. So we can come here and let's say play button, and this is the document query selector, and this is fs element equals to play, like that. And the pause button, pause, it's the button for pausing. And I'm pretty sure that the buttons are here, so I'll just make a type assertion. So it's just for telling TypeScript that we know that these buttons are on the page. Okay, so now I can take this play button and I can add an event listener. And I can say that when clicking on this event listener, on this button, sorry, I want to play the animation. Play, like that. So play button, add event listener of a click. And when I click the button, play the animation. Cool, it's working, right? That's very simple. And then we can do the same, but for the pause button. I could come here and I could say the pause button. When I click it, I want to pause the animation. So if we play the animation, I can pause it. I can play it again. I can pause it. I can play it again. I can pause it. I have full control of what's happening here on the page. But it does not need to be clicks. I could just have, for example, an input element. And whenever I type on the input, I want to play the animation, or I don't know, whatever you can think of, as long as you just write some extra JavaScript to detect the event that has happened and then trigger any action on the animation, that's fine. You can do whatever you want. So I think that it's cool like that. Just leave it like that. Do we have any other questions so far?
Yes. Can you do that same thing for scroll trigger?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Caleb brings up
Yeah.
a nice comment. One of the biggest benefits of GSAP over Webflow interactions
Mm-hmm.
is the GSAP scroll trigger. Gives you super
Yeah.
granular control of when animations start or end.
Yeah, that's correct.
Nice.
So there are two other things that I wanted to mention during this stream. The first one is because so far we just talked about basic tweens. So the to, the from, or the from to, and I have not showcased the differences. But if I change this to from instead, and I play, you can see that the only thing that it's doing is reversing the action. So instead of going to this translation, going to a border radius of 0%, and going to a margin bottom of 2 rems. This is doing it the opposite. It's starting from these properties, and then it's going to the properties that the element had on by default, right? So it's the main difference. That's it. The second thing that I wanted to mention is that not only you can just trigger a single animation, and it's that you can trigger timelines, which would be basically just chaining different animations. So you can start an animation and then halfway you can trigger another animation. You can do many other things, but we'll do that in a second. And the third thing that I wanted to mention during this stream is that GSAP offers plugins. So GSAP has a plugin system that it's very powerful. If we go to the docs in here, you will see that there's a section dedicated to plugins, and there are a lot of plugins. So attributes plugin, CSS plugin, Flip, Observer, Pixie plugin, smooth trigger. I think it was something there. Scroll smoother, things like that. So every plugin is just adding a bunch of extra functionalities to GZAP. And as Caleb mentioned, one of the most popular ones, it's the scroll trigger. Scroll trigger, it's basically just triggering animations while scrolling. So imagine that instead of playing the animation like that, I want to play the animation while I scroll through the page, right? And then I want to see these elements just moving around while I scroll. So let's do it. Let's just take the scroll trigger and let's go back 1 second to the installation docs. So if we go to installation and we check the npm section, this is already showing me how to install an extra plugin. So the only thing that I need is I need to import it from GSAP also, and I need to register that plugin. So we can copy this. We can, whoops, not in here, in here. We can paste this like that. And now we're good to start using scroll trigger. So let's go back again to the documentation. GZAP, not GZAP, plugins, scroll trigger. And scroll trigger, you have here a full documentation of everything that you can use. We'll just do the basic things. And in this case, so let's start with this animation. And we want that when we scroll through the page, we want to play this animation, same as it's happening here. So the first thing that we have to do is here we have a property that is the scroll trigger. So the animation already accepts a bunch of settings for making this animation compatible with scroll trigger. And in here we have, again, a lot of things that we can do. But the base thing that we want to do is first we want to show the start and the finish of this. And give me 1 second because I'm looking for it. I think this was markers. I forgot markers like that. True. Okay, so when we set up these markers, we can see whenever the scroll animation is going to happen, right? But in this case, this looks kind of weird because the start and the end are both here down, and the reason is because we need to define a specific target for this scroll trigger. So we'll say not target, sorry, a specific trigger, and the trigger we will say that it's the wrapper, this stream wrapper. So the element that it's wrapping everything, we want it that when we scroll it through it, we want to trigger the animation. So we'll just pick this. I know it's a CSS class, but that would be fine. And look, we have the start and the end. This is already showing the threshold of the scrolling, right? But obviously we are already scrolling into it because we don't have any scrolling to do. The whole thing it fits in the view. So let's just add a bunch of padding. Let's come here and say padding. Yeah, I'll add some padding. We'll say 8 RAM, 0 RAM, 8 RAM, and 0 RAM. No, a little bit more. Let's add 20 RAM. Okay, that should be enough, like that. So we can now see that the start and the end, it's a little bit different. But obviously, if I don't pass any other options, what I'm saying right now is whenever the stream wrapper comes into view, play the animation, right? So now this has come into view, so that it's playing. If I happen to add, let's say, margin top, the 100 view width, and now we don't see the element. All right, give me 1 second, because I think that the padding it's not affecting here. Let me change this. So scroller start, scroller end. Huh. 1 second, because I'm doing something wrong. Start. I want to put the start on the top. Okay, now an end. I want to put the end on the bottom. Okay, so we have the start here. Pause me. Okay, give me 1 second. This will start paused. This will not repeat. This will not do yo-yo at all. So now the animation is paused. And then when it scrolls past the start, you can see here this start, the animation will play. But let me tweak this because I think I'm not showing it good enough. Like that. That's a little bit better. Okay, so whenever we go past the marker in here, the animation will play. Let me just refresh because this is not. Let me refresh 1 second. We have the threshold here. We scroll down, and then when we start here, the animation plays, right? But as I said before, and sorry for the confusion, this is just triggering the animation once, and that's it. So whenever we reach the trigger, we play the animation. But what's powerful with scroll trigger is that, for example, you can say scrub. And when we say scrub like that, now what's going to happen is that the animation will follow the scrolling like that. And I don't have the correct thresholds. So this is not working as I expected to work. So give me 1 second. I think I'll get rid of this padding and I'll add some margin bottom like that. Not good enough.
You can use 100 viewport height.
Right. Thank you. Well, I would have to play around a little bit with the setting, with the styling of the element, because right now this is just going out of the view. But what you can see is that based on my thresholds, I'm triggering this animation while I'm scrolling. So ideally, this scroller start that we have here, the animation would end when this green line would reach the end down here. That's in here. I could, for example, because I don't know exactly how am I defining this, and sorry for the people who's
Maybe
seeing
try a
being.
padding bottom.
Yeah, I will try that. Give me 1 second because I want to know exactly why this is starting here. I see that people is already hinting me with a bunch of properties. Yeah, I think that we should talk about, thank you, Dennis. I think that we should talk about what I wrote here that I did not explain. So when you define a scroll trigger, you have a bunch of things that you need to define. You have to define the start of the bottom of the scrolling. And this accepts a bunch of options. So if I go here, and so Dennis is suggesting start 50%. Let's see what happens here. Okay, start 50%, and then the bottom, the end, it's saying bottom 50%, like that. Okay, this is better, right? A little bit better. Thank you, Dennis. So you have to play around a little bit with the start and the end, and I'm not a pro with this, so I recommend that you check the documentation that it's scroll trigger, and you'll see that it explains in more in depth about how to set up the end and how to set up the start the start, and you'll probably understand it better than I do because I just played a little bit with this, but I'm not a pro. But I know that you can tweak everything from where should this start line be, where should the scrolling start be, where should the end be, where should the animation. So you can basically tweak everything and everything. You have full control about how to handle this in this interaction while the user is scrolling. So I recommend that you go ahead and check it out. um okay, there's one last thing that I wanted to mention that we have not mentioned, and I think it's important, and it's the timelines. Because right now here we just have, let me disable for a second the scroll trigger. We just have this animation, right, that it's playing, and that's it. But imagine that you have more things. Sorry. Imagine that you have multiple elements and you want to do different things with those elements. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about, but I won't have enough time, so just go ahead and play around with it yourself. And it's that in GSAP, we have what's called the timelines. The timeline essentially it's a way of coordinating different animations, so you can play them whenever you think it's best. You can just move them around. And for the sake of going fast to show that, I'll just give me 1 second because GSAP has a nice page about that. I think it's this one.
And also, Alex, before we leave, make sure that we show this in a published Webflow project.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, so you can see this page in GZAP. It's just greensolve.com/position parameter. So essentially, with a timeline, what you can do is coordinate multiple animations to play in different ways. So as in here, you can see we have different elements. We can add delays between elements. We can overlay different animations so they trigger based on some negative delays. They trigger based on other other actions. Here, this is happening at the same time. The second one, here you can define specific labels, which is very helpful when you have big interactions, etc. So you have a lot of control when you use timelines. Perhaps if we do another stream, we could play around with that. But you're right, Joe. I think that before ending, we should just move it to the starter template. Okay, so I'll just do the
No,
same thing that I did.
no, not the starter template, to a published Webflow
Okay,
project. Yeah, the
okay,
CDN,
so
this is,
no.
for people that don't
Okay,
understand in the
yeah,
editor.
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yep. Okay, so do I have still the script here? I do. Cool. So we have the balls in here. So let's just take these code in here. I'll get rid of the scroll trigger. I'll activate again this. I'll get rid of the incomplete. I'll get rid of the play buttons and pause buttons. Should I? Should we keep them? I think that we
Yeah.
can just do the animation. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's keep the
Yeah,
buttons.
just yeah, it's a quick.
Okay, so let's just add the buttons here. Button, and this will be for play me, and another button for pause. Let's just add a wrapper to them. Don't kill me. I'm not using client first naming.
Now you're getting fancy.
Uh, because I want to add some gap so people. Okay, that's worse. Better. I think that there's a button class in client first. Yep, it does. Okay, and the last thing that we did here was that we added an FS element play and FS element pause. So let's just add it. FS element play for this one, FS element pause for this one, and let's just put a little bit of margin like that, and that should be fine. Oh, right, we need to put the code. Let's just pick the animation. Should be fine because we have the ball class. We don't need this. We don't need this. We have the ball class. We have the styles that we want to apply. We have the play button, pause button. We have everything. And I think that, come on, I just, never mind. Nothing happened. So we have the code here. I just paste it in Webflow. But we will have to get rid of the TypeScript definitions. It has a couple of TypeScript definitions, but for now, let's just put these on tech like that. And I know that this is TypeScript, so this should be removed. This is TypeScript, so this should be removed. Put it like that. I'm just making things prettier. Don't mind. I think that should be fine. Let's try it out. So let's publish. Play. GZAP, it's not defined. Okay, GZAP, it's not defined. But GZAP, it is defined. So perhaps we need to wait. Oh, yeah, right, because this is with a defer tag. So we need to wrap everything. Stay with me. It's going to be fast. We need to wrap everything with a document add event listener, DOM content loaded. So this is essentially saying, okay, don't do anything until the page has loaded first. And we'll put again the code in here like that. By the way, I just did it in Beat because I hate writing code in this editor. Okay, that now this should work. It's the same code, nothing changed. The only thing that I said is don't run GZAP until the page has loaded. Okay, now it's working.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, not the best animation that you could have, but it's something that that you can play
It
around with.
works.
Um, yeah, that works. That was a goal.
Nice. And hey, that was our goal from the beginning, to do a stagger animation
Hmm.
by the end of the stream. And it's right at the hour, and we have it working in multiple environments. So there you go. It's
Hmm.
in Webflow, hosted Webflow project, webflow.io link. So this is the end of the stream.
Nice.
This is the end of the content. It seems a lot of people liked this GSAP concept. So if we see that this video gets a lot of views, if it has a lot of likes, thumbs up likes, we will consider doing a part 2 to this and really maybe go through a specific use
Mm.
case of animating something complex. Thank you, everybody, for coming and watching live. This was a great session. Really good to get into this technical information, because the more of it you know, the more power you have in Webflow. Alex, how are you feeling after this demo? What's going through your head?
You know what? I'm happy because I did not mess up that as much as I thought I would. I think that the goal was kind of achieved, so I'm happy, and I'm happy that a lot of people stick with us here. So thank you guys for being here. So yeah, just happy.
Good. Me too. Dennis Karg in the comments has said that he's going to send a Webflow clonable in this chat to start in GSAP. Dennis
Nice.
Karg is a friend of Finsweet, helped us a lot with cookie consent. So, yes, Dennis, of course you can share. Please check out Dennis's work. Really smart person. Okay, this is the end of the stream. Thank you, everybody, for coming and enjoying this content together. We will be back next week with more content. I'll be doing a live build on Tuesday. We have Community Day on Thursday. And then every Friday, we're back here with Alex to do something technical. All right, final words, Alex, until we turn this stream off. Nothing.
Thank you, everyone. No, I always say everything, and then you ask me to say the final
Yeah.
words, and I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I need to say something now.
I
But
gotta
yeah,
start.
just
I
thank
have
you,
to stop
everyone.
doing that.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great weekend, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.